I have 2 where I die to Colossi pushes while going Hydra Bane. And this one is actually only a couple days ago and is fresh in memory, so I'm going to go with that one.
All right. Always good to kind of have something you can relate to when you're not watching and going, oh, was this? Oh, did I do that? Having something that's fresh in your memory can always be nice, but
Yeah. This one was, I think, 2 days ago, so...
Oh, you made...
oops, sorry. Yep.
Nice.
Do I need to invite you back in?
I'll just have to relog 1 sec.
Oh, sorry about that.
So
I should have made you...
the lobby host.
There we go. Yeah, okay. Whoops.
Yeah, no worries. All good. Thank you very much, Apop. Miss playing D&D with you as well, man. Hopefully get back to it soon. Do you watch much Neuro stream, man?
I watched some Neuro, yeah. I really like Neuro. Just got a good attitude.
Indeed. Yeah, if you're ever being an angry, irrational nerd, definitely a very good person to remember how to have fun. Make you the leader.
There we go. And I need to make you, here we go, lobby host. There we go.
Awesome. And I'm using the Game Heart overlay, but a lot of people prefer to use just like the WCS one because they're too lazy and it doesn't have that much difference. Even the default's not bad, just for the people watching. There's someone who's going, wow, this looks different. Yeah, there's an observer and replay menu, and you'll by default have this. I actually also have a really cool one, hide default UI interface. That's my casting with no information one. That's okay. I can't do it in game, but basically that's that like hides supply, income, everything. Unit, no tabs. That's the one that the guy who made Game Heart, Ryan Shutter, who works with Blizzard now on the UI team. He actually made that just because people kept talking about, Brood War was more exciting because no information. And it is kind of fun. I do really like casts where you're forced to, have a little bit more suspense. Kind of puts you in the player's shoes a little bit more of like not knowing. Because, I mean, how often do you know mutalisks are coming 2 minutes ahead of time, right? In game. Sure. Whereas when you're watching in StarCraft 2, it's like, well, he's starting that. He's going to do this. So it does take a bit of the hype out. At the same time, for learning, god damn, this is 1,000 times better than using an old RTS replay system. It's so much better. So you're gonna go for that third base, and is he gonna not bother with the cannon because of that?
He didn't. I don't know why he went Forge first. I actually failed, despite. So he was playing random, which is why I drone scouted.
Oh, okay. He's probably just doing his Heart of the Swarm build, by the looks of it.
Yeah, maybe. So I actually failed to notice that he had put a Forge up when I had drone scouted.
And he's chronovisiting the Zealots. You found yourself a right weirdo.
Players, right? Like,
yeah, random players are definitely a little.
Usually on this map, I pull a 15 drone to avoid the block at the natural.
Yeah.
But I think maybe I was just a little too slow on that this game, or maybe because I pulled the drone, the scouting drone, I didn't quite have the minerals at the time I normally would. So he got the block off. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
so
I mean,
I just went for the third.
You're doing okay right now, but yeah, unfortunately, you are gonna miss the Stargate. Luckily for you, it's Phoenix first, so it doesn't matter. The Phoenix will show itself. Oh, maybe not actually. But
well, it does end up. I think I get spotted some other way.
Yeah. So looking at your vision, you're pretty blind right now. Having no lings out front of the base or like on the potential third or anything like that. So that's a little rough. You're doing a very standard kind of anti-ground response because you have no information, right? It's the lair and the double gases. Compositionally, yeah, exactly. You're still playing Roach Hydra Lurker in this matchup, or sorry, what was it?
I'm trying to play Roach Hydra, or not Roach Hydra, Ling Hydra Bane with like a safety Roach Warren.
Oh, that was it. Okay. Do you build roaches,
Yeah,
like safety roaches every game, or just like some
It
games?
depends. If it looks like they're going phoenixes, I won't. But otherwise, I do try and get like at minimum like maybe 8, in case they're like trying an Archon drop or something like that.
Yeah.
The thing that's a little bit awkward is, and here I think I've seen more than one phoenix by this point, which is why I'm building extra spores and not building roaches. Yeah, that's exactly right. But does he actually have more than one phoenix? Yeah, he has 4. Yeah. Okay. But what can get awkward is if they end up staying on 2 bases for like a long time and it looks like they push, then I'll build a lot of roaches. And then it's like, well, I'm already so committed to roaches that I'm not going to go Hydra Bane, I'm going to go Roach Hydra.
Yeah. In that case, I would really suggest you do a 55 drone Ravager, Hydra, Roach, Zergling, just big attack to kill them on their third. Because it's a good way to leverage that, since you're not as comfortable playing Roach Hydra as a style. You know, you can be like, cool, I got a bunch of Roaches and Hydras, and now I'm droning to 70 drones, and wait, I got a lot of Roaches, Hydras, I gotta use these, let's do a timing, and you'll kind of like, you know, it's like, well, we didn't build towards that timing, but now we feel forced to use these units while they're still good, or like our transition feels a bit awkward, or we end up doing like a 10-minute, let's add melee upgrades and Baneling speed, and it's like, well, no, like, you need to be going to Broodlords if you want to keep playing a longer game at this point. Like, you can't be swapping a Ling Bane, you know, and he's got Storm and Archons and Colossus already out or something like that, right? So definitely you can get gumped up. So that's like a good plan, especially in the kind of 2-base robo push meta, right? So that can really be a good kind of thing there. So in this game, I was really worried because you were clearly kind of rushing towards Hydras. Like, we go back a few minutes here, you didn't know about the 3rd base. And you were kind of like, yeah, let's go for the Hydra Den and go to, you know, 60 workers kind of thing. And like, we don't really know what's going on at all, right? No Zerglings. So, I mean, I think as a general rule, right, especially with your sort of style, we should probably be having a little, you know, always have a few Zerglings out. And you've got 7 Zerglings, but you're just not being active with them. So that's something where whenever, you know, building in, at the very least, the spotter Zerglings, like not having one here. Yes, we lost the one that was on the 3rd earlier, but like we should have gone in to check that was actually down, right? You know,
should have replaced it.
Yeah, and then we would have been like, oh, he's going Phoenix. We would have known this like a little bit earlier. Okay, that would have made us feel a bit safe. Then like look at the front, and be like, well, there is a 3rd, and there's a couple sentries, and like, you know, that there's a few different things. But we're definitely like kind of playing a little bit blind here, kind of going, please, can you just show me what you're doing exactly, Protoss, so I know what to do? Whereas we should be more active at going out and finding what he's doing, rather than waiting for him to show it to us, because that's obviously going to be a situation where we can get bopped. So it's especially bad in this scenario because whenever you're in that realm of not knowing exactly what's happening and you're not sure exactly which way you want to commit, a great way you can hedge and keep your options open is to build quite a few extra overlords ahead of time. So, oh, if there's an attack coming, you don't need to build overlords, you can just build army. Or, oh, he's being greedy, you can just build drones, right? So what ends up happening is you do the thing we all do, where you're so busy thinking about what should I be doing. You're supply blocked. Yeah, you're already coming up relatively close to it, and obviously, you know, the Phoenix are what really drill it in. But like, you only built 2 overlords there. We should have been building like 7 overlords there, probably, right? Off the income you're up to at this stage, it should be like 7, right? So, 2-base styles that force lots of roaches. We're gonna say branch into a 55 drone +1 range, you know, Hydra, Ravager, Roach, Ling timing attack to kill their 3rd, you know. And obviously they've got a pretty late 3rd with that style, but this is good because it's kind of saying, well, let's never go past 55 drones. Maybe we go up to 58, 59, but then we're dropping the, you know, the Hydra Den and the Evo chamber and another gas, and we're down to 55, 56, right? So
how many gases am I doing that one?
That's great question. 5 gases. 55 drone, 5 gas.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you're building, literally, you're trying to get both upgrades on the Hydras and get at least like 10, 12 Hydras out. So you don't need that many Hydras with it. Obviously, it's a timing attack. You can't build like 20 Hydras, but even just 10, 12 Hydras is like a real, it's a rank of long-range needle-throwing, acid-spitting Hydralisks, right? They do really good damage. And then you've got the Roaches and the Lings in front, and the Ravagers, of course, to break force fields, to zone units out. You can kind of create a concave and make them fight into it and be dropping biles and using your kind of concave of Hydras. Lots of cool stuff you can do with that, but it's just nice because it gives you a plan. Now, a lot of people get stuck when they're defensive of like, okay, I'm building units to be safe, but they don't think far enough ahead to how am I then going to leverage all this defense into doing something with it. And we're talking about that scenario of like, well, I got 30 Roaches and I have no plan, right? We've got to create some plan for how we can use that unit. And this is awesome because even if we're not sure what's happening, we're like, he's taking a third and it ends up being a fake third. He doesn't build any probes or it does a push. We're still not being too greedy, right? We're not going 70 drones. I mean, maybe we'll be a little greedy if they're only on 45 probes or we're up on 55 drones and making, Hydra upgrades and +1 and stuff. But like in general, it's like the upper limit of our greed against someone who's going quite 2-base heavy is really not that high. So by default, we're setting ourselves up to probably be safe against many things that come our way. And that can be really nice to just kind of say, okay, cool. We're setting ourselves up to have a game plan that is generally pretty safe. But it also means we're not going to be sitting there just building economy for so long that then they've got the defense up to protect their delayed third. Like, we still want to go and explode into the aggression off that early economy lead that we've had, right? We've had our third up so much longer than them. We want to turn that into some sort of aggression, some sort of problem for our opponent, and we are going to try to do that. I would have liked you to micro your Banelings just a little bit more in this engagement upon seeing that was just like 2 Immortals and 2 Sentries, whereas I'm okay for your Banelings to blow up on this army, just because it's a lot more stuff. It's kind of clumped and whatnot. As it is, gotcha. Your opponent's a madman. He's trying to go Stalker Colossus Sentry with like very late Colossus. He's trying to go Colossus Phoenix Zerg versus Protoss. That's an odd one. Colossus are really good versus Ling Vane.
Players, so.
Yeah, random players, man. Very odd choices they make. Get those Balix in that mineral line, and then leave. We've kind of already hung around so long here. Oh no.
Yeah, that was not a good decision. I agree.
Okay, just get the Hydras out and you'll be fine. Get the Hydras out. Yes, good enough. So you haven't started a Spire or anything yet. You can definitely play Hydra Bane for a long time, but because Colossus are so efficient, you should always be teching straight to Spire and Hive against them.
Is that the response? So if I see Colossus, I should just be like, instantly it's time for Aspire?
Yeah, and if you go Hive as well, it's good because then you can turn them into Broodlords, right? So it's like, look, if they do a Colossus Stalker Sentry timing, Corruptors are good. Problem is, like, if they go 3 Colossus, but then they're like adding like Storm and Archons and stuff, and you're like, I got 14 Corruptors and just Hydras. Like, that's a pretty terrible army if they have enough Storm and stuff. So that's why there's kind of like the intersection, right? Where like they're on like Stalker Sentry, pretty bad army versus Hydras. They add 2 or 3 Colossus with force fields being used, right? Holy shit, your army's bad against that, right? You're like, this is really bad. I can't engage it properly with Hydra Bane unless I get really good surrounds and stuff, right? You add Corruptors. Stalkers and Sentries don't deal with Corruptors very well. Suddenly, your army's way better again. You're like, whoa, power spike. And then it's like, and then they're like, well, no, I have like Storm and Archons and stuff, and I'm not as reliant on the Colossi. Plus, you add Archons and Storm dealing with Corruptors, and they disappear. And you're like, oh, my army's shit again. His army's really strong. And you're like, now I morphed 8 Broodlords. Your army's terrible, Protoss player, Gary. So there's a bit of a seesaw there. And don't get me wrong, you can always kind of base trade with Hydra Bane. Like, you can just be waiting with like half your army on the top side of the map. Oh, he's pushing out, run in,
Sure.
You can do that sort of stuff where you don't fight him front on. You don't fight into his little defensive wall of force fields and splash damage behind it. Or you wait for a gigantic surround, which you're kind of going for here. But the thing is, you're way too close in. So he's going to be able to easily drop force fields and pull behind the gap, as well as he's got Storm.
I should let him come up onto the plateau, right?
Yeah, these you should be like spread. You see where I'm signaling? Like this is like where your units should be spread. Yeah. Like 2 screens back on either side. Let him come right in the middle of the plateau and then go. Hydra Bane can beat these armies, but we see a lot of your Banelings unfortunately got clumped there behind that force field on that top middle center, and like brutal storms and splash damage there. And we see just how fragile the Hydras are. So it becomes so engagement based if you're fighting this with Hydra Bane, which is why, if we like had like, a bunch of Corruptors up, it'd just make our life easier. We have more like leisure with spreading our stuff out and all that sort of jank.
Sure.
Do you win this game?
No, I definitely got to lose it.
Okay. So because he pulls back there, this would be like, I would be like, well, I'm desperate. He's got Storm and Colossus. Like, you should be just splitting your army in half around the top, half around the bottom, and going full base trade right now. Like,
oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because you're not going to fight that front on, but Stalkers are bad in base trades. But Hydras, like, they can crash through. Banelings can break walls quickly. You can get into his mineral lines and stuff pretty well.
I just throw shit away and die here, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's so fascinating because if sometimes, like, even this fight here, if you had like 8 Hydras coming in from the south there, you'd like kill probably all his Colossus with those Hydras if they came in with a bit of a spread. Like, it's just insane how drastically different these engagements can be based on the exact angle and like just how important creep and coming in with a gigantic arc is. But the moment you clump up a little, like, their splash is just insane. So, what were we writing before? Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Yep. So definitely map vision, right? Map vision with your lings, right, is just so crucial. Whenever
in this game, you would say I kind of got away with it, right? Like, I got lucky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you're in a great position. Yes. So yeah, trying to go up to Hydra Bane is definitely like with the safety Roach Warren. And because we were playing very low Queen as well, like, I mean, this is the sort of game where I don't think we'd seen a Phoenix at this point. I don't think we had any info at this point. Like, I would have by default. You do build spores, even though they're kind of late ones. So maybe you'd glimpse the Phoenix flying over the Zergling, probably. But without really knowing what's going on, I would 100% as you be like, okay, we're just building a round of roaches for safety. So I don't think you should be like super averse to that, you know, building 8 to 10 roaches at this stage if you don't know what's going on, right? Like, I think that should be totally fine. Or committing to more Zerglings even, but like, you know, definitely it's something which we've got to be not freezing up at this point. If you ever find yourself in the zone where you're going, ooh, maybe I can get another 10 drones, but you don't have a clear structure there, like, it definitely feels like we're pushing our greed just way too much at this point. Even if we had the map vision, I'd be like, ooh, we're towing that line, like, and we're probably overstepping it a bit. But like, you know, once we see multiple Phoenix, I'm okay with it. I'm like, oh yeah, we can probably get to this. Like, as long as we start massing units like pretty soon, like if you like immediately make a Hydra upgrade and start making Hydras like now, you know, that would be okay.
The fact that I built these spores between the bases makes me think I saw the 2 Phoenixes.
Yes, yeah, you saw them with the Zerglings.
He was going. Yeah, I must have given that.
Yeah. What's kind of funny is because like the Phoenix were not that crazy fast, like you could actually in this case have gone straight Hydras against them, but you didn't know it was not 2-star. You probably assumed it was 2-star Gate Phoenix. Better to focus on Spore Crawlers, building extra Overlords, building extra drones. But yeah, I think the map vision will be one of the biggest ones. We've got an all-in plan now against the 2-base player. Against Colossus, we've also got a plan. So versus Colossus, immediate Spire, and go Hive quickly. So you can have 2 power spikes, right? Corruptors, and then Broods. Yeah, and then you can, of course, base trade and backstab. Whenever you're unsure if you can fight. So sometimes I'll be like, I'm going straight to Broods. Sweet. I don't want to fight with Corruptors right now. His army's too scary. Remember I was talking about the power spikes. He's got Storm now. He's got Archons. Even if I've played well, there might be like a small window where I'm like, well, I just don't want to fight him. So my army will go and hide down at his 5th base or in the bottom of the map somewhere, you know, ready for that backstab I was talking about. And I'm not trying to throw it away, right? Like, he should, when he sees that army come in, he should recall quickly, and I'll just back out.
Home, and then you bought time for your to get to a Broodlords. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like that. Hey, if you go for the base trade, like, I can take it. I can go for the base trade, or like at least start the base trade earlier than you, and then like morph my Broodlords in the back corner of my base. And like, even though I'm gonna lose most of my bases, so are you, and then I'm gonna have Broodlords, so hopefully it's okay. And like these scenarios, obviously, if you've had like a really good opening compared to your opponent, like you're like, you know, haven't really taken any harassment damage, you shouldn't really even end up in these scenarios. You probably can just defend front on, right? But I think it's like really silly for us to be like, oh, I want to play solid. I should always be able to defeat my opponent's army front on at every single point in the game, because that kind of like hinges upon us. You know, if we try to cover every option, we're never really getting ahead, and we're often just slowly falling behind. Because it means at no point are we pushing our tech and our economy hard enough to really take that next step.
Gotcha.
So another thing here is overseers. So notice how you built some spores, which is nice, and it's easy when your opponent goes Phoenix to forget overseers, but it tells me that maybe you have a habit of not having an overseer, and often people are just...
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, like you watch replays. I bet there's an observer here in some of your games just seeing everything that pops out of your hatcheries, and it's there for the entire game. Like on this game, you've got the zoning spore in the middle, but like so many games, even at pro play, I see that at the moment. Like, so I actually like to always send an overseer on a patrol path between my main and my third. I did that in early Legacy, and I start doing that again recently just to check if it's there, and then I'll rejoin it with my army. But that's like a cute little thing. You don't need to, if you just have it with your army, like that's going to make a big difference. I also feel like...
I also don't do like a follow-up scout with an overseer, like sacking an overseer. Like I don't find out about his Colossi until I...
Yeah. I mean, Colossus, this is definitely one that can sneak up on you. If you saw his third right now, you should be thinking Colossus though, right?
Why?
Sentries and Stalkers. So neither of those units are you going to see usually. I'm not saying this 100% means it. Don't get me wrong. You can play weirdos who just keep warping in Stalkers for no reason. But we should, that alone is like a bit of a tell. And we should be thinking if someone's just warping in Stalkers and Sentries. Yeah, I mean, Storm, Stalker, Sentry, not really a proper army. You'd rather be making Immortals, right? Because if you're making Storm, Stalker, Sentry, like you actually don't have much anti-armored damage or raw damage output for killing roaches, even. Like, Storm's not bad against roaches, but Stalkers are really just not a great damage output unit. So, Stalker, Sentry in general, like, usually this is just the Colossus composition, but we should just be scouting. And this brings us to your general early scouting, which is a little bit lacking. So let's go back to that and let's take a little look-see. And I actually did a video recently, so I can link that up to you.
Right? I think I saw that the
ZvP Conundrum?
YouTube. Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Okay, make sure you check that one. So we'll talk about scouting now, because we can make you just a little bit more scouting. ZvP Conundrum video, I'll just link it as well, so I can link it for you, but also for the lovely people in chat. Awesome. So obviously that was me with Eon Blue, who's kind of semi-pro level, kind of GM on EU sort of level. Linked that to you. Let me link that to chat. There we go. Okay, so with your scouting here, this Overlord, so I do prefer that Overlord to definitely scout the entire main base, but because you saw this pylon, maybe it tricked you. Either way, you kind of came, let's take a look. So you hit the cannon. So from the very start, with that scouting path we talked about in that video, and I think this is a really good way to do it, is we always try to send our first two lings straight across the map. Now, it wouldn't work in this case, but we basically build another 4 Zerglings. So we build 6 lings rather than 4 to defend the Adept, 2 of which we just shift click. And if you don't want to memorize the path or pay attention to your Overlord, we would just shift click them like this, right? We'd be like, go there, go there. All right, like basically, so they dodge the first Adept and they'll naturally kind of avoid that first Adept, probably get in the base. And then our first Overlord is always queued to go touch the natural and then skirt the edge of the main base. And the idea behind skirting the edge of the main is if a Stalker goes to it, it can run left and get to safety, right? The Stalker won't be able to get it. If the Stalker comes to the low ground, it can run right into the main base. Stalker's not going to get it unless they build 2 Stalkers, which is crazy. The combination of that Overlord and those 2 Zerglings mean we should be able to see the tech really easily. Now, you're at the level where I think you can do this every game and just build it as a habit.
Like run through the... Do what you just described?
Yeah, do what I just described. Yeah. Whereas, like,
Gotcha.
Just for anyone who's like, if you have any lower level friends, or if anyone in chat, maybe you probably don't want to do this. You probably just want to say Overlord touches the natural, and then it just dives straight through the main, and like usually
Which is what I've been doing so far, actually.
Okay, cool. Right, yeah, you just got diverted by the
Overlord's path right here. He gets changed because of the photon cannon.
The cannon distracted it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna die to it.
Yes. Yeah. Would have been good if we just dodged slightly to the side and continued the path, right?
Kept going.
Because then you would have known it was Stargate straight away. And if you knew it was Stargate straight away, how would your build have been different?
Well, I wouldn't have dropped the Roach Horn. I would have droned harder, I think.
Yeah.
And I also would have probably gone up to lair a little bit later, and I would have started spores a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because normally it's
So all
like
these things would have changed.
it's like Roach Warren, 2 more gases, and lair. I kind of those are like your anti-ground response, which can be delayed about like 30, 40 seconds if we're playing Stargate.
Yeah.
And likewise,
so instead of like
yeah,
340 for that, like 14 or something.
exactly. And if you'd actually gone through the main, now obviously in this case he built a Stalker, but if he didn't, and you say you were getting shot by a Phoenix, say the Stalker wasn't here, if he shows the second Phoenix production, you'd also see that. Like whenever I see a Stargate, I like to hang above that Stargate and see what builds afterwards, always.
Yeah. See the units coming out of it.
Yeah, like you can definitely check the natural gases a lot of the time. You'll have time for both. But like, yeah, if you see a second Stargate, you're like, oh, sweet. And I don't even build spores if I know there's a second Stargate straight away. I'm like, no way, we don't need that at all. So obviously you would build spores very early, very safety. Chat saying 3 minutes 30 is the timing to build spores for the first Oracle, right? Well, if you're playing...
If they go really fast or...
Yeah, exactly. If you're playing like Neeb or something, like sure, but like, yeah. You could totally get away with like a 345, 3 minute 50 spore for most people on the ladder every game, right? So this is something a lot of people copy these pro timings and they never actually pay attention to what their opponents do on the ladder, and they're building a spore like 30 seconds early, 40 seconds early every game. And like, I'm like, yeah, I get like, you're like, you know, in your head, you're trying to play properly for when you play better players, you hit their build tighter. But at the same time, like the other parts of your build are naturally not going to be as tight as the, you know, the serals that you're copying with the spore timing. So you are hurting yourself every time you do that too fast. So I think, yeah, like 345 is probably like a good timing that we can kind of we can go with for now. And obviously if we find everyone's hitting the really fast Oracle, we can adapt to that. But there should always be bonus points for adapting. You see Phoenix first, you're like, cool, I don't need a spore for a while, right? Like, and you can feel it out. You can be like, oh, he's just started building an Oracle sometime. I don't know exactly when, because I'm just looking at it now. It could have been building for 10, 15 seconds. Oracle could be, and you get like a game sense of being like, I should start my spore crawlers soon, because I know there's an Oracle building, right? You see a second Phoenix you're building, you're like, well, second Phoenix, 2 Phoenix is not a threat, right? Phoenix aren't a threat till there's 4 Phoenix. That's where they can pick up a queen and kill her in a single lift, right? So you're like, oh, okay, like a minute and a half from seeing this second Phoenix start up, like I'm gonna build spores at like 5 minutes 30 or something like that, right? Like you really don't need spores very early. So you're like just holding down that drone key, that pulling your overlords back, getting everything else ready ahead of time, which would be really, really nice there. So the advantage of this scout as well is if those Zerglings get the scout, by the way, if you do start playing against the gasless builds with the pulling off gas zealot all-ins, which are very powerful, with this scouting pattern, that Overlord, hopefully those Zerglings got in, and that Overlord's just kind of like hasn't had to sacrifice itself, and it's just down here, and it comes in at 4 minutes. And if you see they've pulled off gas at like 3:45 to 4 minutes, kind of in the main, it's like, oh my god. Okay, just make defense, right? That's all you need. Just survive if they've pulled off gas mining. But what about scouting the natural gas? That's where the other scouting from that ZvP Conundrum video comes in, which is our second Overlord. And if we go back, that was your one, which is your anti-cannon boy. He's checking that this probe is up to not being a bad boy. But then at this point, you're like, okay, I mean, it's past cannon time. Yes, and the thing is, we can actually do that with our third Overlord. It's totally okay. So this Overlord...
It's like in ZvT, where you would send the second one across.
Yes, so we can actually hide it up here. Is a nice spot where the Phoenix normally don't check. I think he actually checked there this game, but that's the exception. And that can come in here, and that can actually scout the gases on the natural at around that same time of like 4 minutes, just past 4 minutes, and be like, oh, these, I think, is it 4:30? I'm trying to remember the exact timing. I think it's like 4:30. I can check exactly what I wrote down. Maybe like 4:30. Let's see. 4:45. Okay, I did say 4:45 is fine, because it's more of a follow-up. Because for the really fast all-in, it's scouting them pulling off gas in the main that's more important. But yeah, if you scout here at the natural and they're not mining gas at 4:45, it's like, whoa, let's build lots of shit. Because if they're not mining natural gases, but they are mining main gases, what's their maximum probe count?
16, 32, 42, I guess. Or, excuse me.
Almost.
38.
38, my man. Exactly. So we don't want to go past like 45 drones kind of thing if we're up against that, right?
Yeah.
So if you're up against the one where they've pulled off gas in the main, how many probes are they at?
Even less. I guess 32 then?
Yeah. Super filth. So you can literally stop at like 36 drones. A lot of people go 41 if they've got a nice smooth opening, going roaches to defend it. People who like to go Queenling Bane often stop at like 36 drones to make sure they have like all the queens, the banelings ready to just crush the first wave of zealots, and then they build a round of drones almost as the fight's happening because their economy is so goddamn low. Even they need to build some more workers. But the thing is, like, you can afford to basically be at an incredibly low worker count against a Protoss. Now, if a Protoss is going 4 gases, has a forge, has a Templar Archives, has a robo, that's a different story, right? Not only is he at 45 probes, but we want a 60 drone situation versus that. So suddenly we go from a situation where we want a couple of more workers at most to I want to have a lot more workers. And that comes down to the tech investment, right? If the Protoss is investing all that time in upgrades and tech units, robo, Templar Archives, all these fancy things, that army is just better quality than ours. But it takes a long time to get up. That's the weakness of Protoss going for the better units. So in that case, we want the worker lead. We want the extra base of workers on minerals kind of thing, right? To just swarm them with roaches and lings and ravagers and whatnot. But if they're going for the zealot all in, 32 probes, 38 probes, they're not mining gas, like their transition, if they try to transition out of that, they're like, put workers back on gas. I can't do anything. Like they can maybe put down a third nexus, but they're not building any immortals behind it. There's no sentries. So all of your counterattacking against a Protoss and he's got 4 immortals and a bunch of force fields and he can defend a billion roaches, that's not the case off those zealot all-ins, right? And that's why it's totally fine for us to just go, you know what? You're hitting me with 32 probes, I'm defending with 35 drones. As long as I hold, I'm gonna hold down that drone key and saturate a third base that's sitting there just waiting, ready to go. The Protoss player's like, I better start mining gas and drop my first forge. Like, it's a terrible transition for them, and you're infinitely ahead. So it's kind of good to understand the difference there, right? Where Protoss has the hard counter to all Zerg units, but they take a very long time to build up. And that's what gives us time to build an economy advantage. If they want to go just Colossus and Storm and Immortals, we get time to build an advantage and use our cheaper units then, you know. We can just build a Spire and then suddenly build 12 Corruptors, right? We can just build a Hydra Dan, get 2 upgrades and suddenly build 30 Hydras. We don't need to build 2 Robos and sit there for 4 minutes chrono boosting them to swap into those units. So remembering that we've got a lot of strength as well, as much as the Protoss units seem ridiculous at times, they come with their own handicaps and weaknesses. So
that makes sense.
I guess we've talked here a little bit about ZvP in terms of, okay, let's try and not be afraid to build a little pack of roaches, even if we don't end up building roach speed with them, to be a bit safer. Map vision's really important. We're going to try and be a little bit more consistent with that scouting. And I think with that second Overlord, it's really nice. If you find, for instance, it keeps going down, maybe start putting it up here. And maybe you forget to scout for the gases most games. And I don't think that'll matter very often for you, okay? Unless you're really playing against a lot of very specific tight all-ins, which you won't, because they never even hang around at pro level for very long at a time. Everyone gets used to them. I think it's one of these things where we can start using that as that follow-up Overseer Scout. And that's something where if they're going 2-star Phoenix or roaming the map with Phoenix can be a little bit hard. But I think we've talked about, okay, we need more map vision with Lings, okay? So spotting bases, spotting attack paths. I'd also like you to have a backup Ling on the attack path. So if you've got a Ling outside their base, I'd also like another one there in this earlier stages, right?
Okay.
Just so that, you know, you've got a little bit more vision, right? Now, not just that, but it's also going to be, I want a little bit more checking of what's going on. Now, what does that mean? That means Overseer Scout, if possible. So Overseer Scout. But it also means poking in with Lings to check composition, right? And you'll see, like, this is something we don't want to be, like, handicapping our build for by any means, okay? I still think you're focusing on your macro really well, and I don't want to disrupt that focus, okay? I just want a little bit more comfort with you knowing what's going on in the game in front of you. So in this game, it's a little bit more vision, but it's also poking in. It's little things like looking at a whole bunch of Sentry Stalker and saying, okay, that could turn into a scary push. It could also mean Colossus are on the way. Okay, cool. Fair enough. But it's not super specific. Seeing probes go into that third, very specific. That tells us something, right? So like poking Lings in any time around when their third's finishing is really useful because it can confirm, oh, are they actually putting probes on that, or is it just empty? There's like 2 probes mining, nothing rallying over. Oh, okay. You know, sending an Overseer at this stage, let's talk about his base actually. Quick little exercise. So I want you to just look around this Protoss base and tell me what you see, break it down. I'm happy for you to be kind of stream of consciousness. Just tell me what you see.
Okay. I see that he's taken 6 gases. And that he's on 5 of them right now. I see that he is getting an upgrade at the Forge, which I don't think I would, if I look at it like, let's say I was, I don't think I would know if that was +1 or +2, although in this case it looks like it's +2.
Yeah.
I see that he only has 1 Stargate and 1 Robo. I see that he doesn't yet have, well, he just started Templar Archives, which makes me, it's 8 minutes into the game, I would be thinking, like, why isn't the guy going to Dorm yet?
I'm here in the shadows.
That's actually a good point. So,
stalkers.
With his specific build, why do you think he, with what he's gone in this game, think about it in the context of what he's done, why do you think his Storm and his Colossus are so late in this game?
That's a good question. I guess he built so many stalkers, maybe it's a gas thing?
To some extent.
It's like, it doesn't have the gas to go sooner because of how many stalkers he's got.
Yeah.
I don't really, are stalkers really gas intensive?
The sentry's a bit more, so, this is 6 sentries. But you're on the right track. It's also, remember what he opened with? He's got...
Oh yeah, he forged first.
And he's gone 5-6 Phoenix off the back of that as well. So...
Yeah, which is more gas, yeah.
That combined with the Stalkers and Sentries, he's kind of delayed his tech quite a bit because he's gone so many different divergent paths, right? So, obviously, random player. But these are the best ones to learn from because we don't just get to look at the same thing that we see every game, oh, this means this. We get to remind, well, what's possible? Let's go back to the fundamentals. What are the raw values of this and that, right? Random players, random builds force us to think a bit more and to understand kind of the broad picture. And often we need to start doing more broad categorizations, right? So one of the big things I talk about is like, okay, well, you went through a lot of little details there and you were kind of touching on what's important, but it was hard to draw conclusions from any of those individual things you said, right? Like, okay, he's adding upgrades, okay, his Templar Archives is kind of late, he's got 1 Robo, 1 Stargate, he does have 6 gases, so it's not like he's like cutting probes or anything, but it's hard to draw conclusions. So what I find is really useful there is kind of trying to divide the information into signs of aggression versus signs of greed, right? Just trying to generically say, well, at this point, I'm scouting 3 base versus 3 base. What's a sign of aggression? What's a sign of greed? So let's make like a little list here just to finish up for today, because I think this is going to make you a little bit more
research complete.
Understanding of what you're seeing, which obviously incentivizes you to look at it more, right? Like I'm trying to encourage you to like do a bit more overseers. Just like I'm not saying every minute send an overseer through, but if we can work one in at like 7 minutes every game, that's just going to make you more comfortable. We can poke around with our Lings a little bit more, look at their army and say, hey, what does that army look like? Like, does it have upgrades? Like, is there Storm in there? Is it just Immortals? Like, there's a lot of questions, but we want to have more information. So let's talk about this, okay? ZvP, 3 base stage, specifically. Signs of greed. So what are some signs of greed off the top of your head?
He attempts to take a fast fourth.
Okay, so fast fourth. Yep.
If I guess if he's like, do people even double forge in ZvP? I don't know, but he's got multiple forges.
I mean,
seem greedy.
What if forges in general? Obviously, double forges is definitely more greed, but even a single forge, it's a sign of greed, right? And that it's just
you're playing for later, yeah.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, that's an invalid move. It's just you're pushing to the later game. So we'll say forges, just as a general point there.
Yes.
Here in the shadows.
There's stuff like how much you're gonna try and like wall off entrances to your third, or like try and like turtle or some zitty. That can sort of suggest like, oh, you're kind of trying
That
to
upgrade's finished.
stay tighter on your bases because you're not planning to move out for a little bit.
You know what? That's a really niche one, but I actually like it. At first, I was like, oh, this is kind of like not always like, I'm like, oh, that's kind of like hard to read into. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? You see a third, they're not even building a pylon at it. Like, you know when they're trying to fake the third base and like, they're like, I'm just going to send a single lone probe out and just build a nexus. And they're not even building a pylon next to it. And you're like, they don't even put a depths in the mineral line or anything. Like, you know, if you go to cancel with 10 lings, they're not even going to try to defend it. So that's like kind of a cute one. It's small, but it is a sign of, okay, so SimCity at the third base, right? So like a big wall of gates, etc. You know, if you see cannons and batteries, etc., all signs of greed. So I really like that. That's really cool. You see cannons in the mineral line, shield battery and cannon at the natural wall. Awesome.
I guess Robo Facility could go either way, but if they're going Onyx Bay, depending on what part of the game we're in,
yeah,
that's a little greedier because it's like you want to get up the tech tree there.
Absolutely. So we can call that Robo Bay or like Templar Archives as well. If they've opened up like DT drop,
Sure.
Templar Archives means they're going to the more efficient Archons and usually to Storm as well, right? So we can put them under the same thing. So Robo Bay and Templar Archives kind of the same thing. Like they're pushing their tech further. Someone could easily open up with a fast Templar Archives and do a Zealot Archon all in. Someone could easily open up with a fast Robo Bay and do a fast Colossus push. But in many scenarios, we're talking obviously everything's a bit flexible, bit interpretive. A lot of the time you see them adding that in after that 3 base stage. Oh, okay, cool, he's doing this thing. And these are all little individual signs. One of these things alone does not mean anything, right? Like, you can't just have like a Protoss not build any probes for his third. He puts down a 4th Nexus, the Zerg sees it, and the Zerg just goes, oh, I'm gonna just build 100 drones now because he's building a 4th Nexus. And like, oh, but then he still had a giant army and killed me. How does this work? These all tell us a picture together, right? Fast 4th, Forges, SimCity at the 3rd, Robo Bay, Templar Archives. These are all great things. We can talk about gateway count as well to a certain extent. So an example of that. Yeah, in this game, what is it? Yeah, it is 6. So what if like the thing is, especially if we go right back, right? Because and obviously timing is everything in StarCraft. So what if like the 3rd's still building, right? You're at this point, you scout. Imagine you see no Forge. Imagine you see no Templar Archives. I guess this game he was a bit slower because he's going for the multiple Phoenix. We go to like 7 minutes and then look at it. But imagine you see, no Forge going, no probes on the 3rd, right? That's another one as well. So let's talk probe count as well. Probe count, right? On 3rd base is actually quite big, right? Gateway count though. So if they're going like, oh, look, 10, 8 to 10 gateways, or let's say 8 gateways, before probing 3rd base, like that's a pretty big sign of aggression, right?
Sure.
And this is all very fancy and stuff, but like often, so this game, like I said, let's say we're morphing an overseer 7 minutes or so, we're coming through 7:30, and we're just getting like a snapshot of this base, and we're trying to draw a picture in our head of like, what is this Protoss trying to do? And what do we see? With probe count on 3rd base, we can also add gases as well as part of that. So remember, you mentioned that before. We see gases on the 3rd. We see a good probe count. That's a sign of greed. Cool. He's going further in the game. What else do we see? We see a Forge that's upgrading. That's not crazy, but it is a sign of greed. He's going deeper into the game, right? If we saw a 2nd Forge, it would be even more. We see a Twilight. We see a Robo. Stargate. None of those really mean anything. Could mean anything. Whatevs. We see, okay, there's a bunch of gateways in the main. But if we saw all of the main and natural, we just saw 6 gateways, we'd be like, well, okay, this is like pretty standard stuff, right? And if we happen to drop a changeling, get a follow-up scout, we get to see that progression very clearly, where it's like, oh, Robo Bay, Templar Archives, so he's now adding on more tech, continuing to probe that 3rd base. These are all many of the signs of aggression here, right? Now, whilst we don't see like a full wall at the 3rd, we do see multiple pylons at that 3rd base, okay? And this is cool because suddenly this is just giving you things for your mind to focus on. You open up a replay and you go, okay, what did I think this Protoss was doing when I was playing? And what was he actually doing? And as a nice little exercise, right, this is one of these really good things. Let's start thinking about our opponent as a person and their goals and what they want to achieve. We always want to start with our own baseline, what we want to achieve in the game. But I think you're doing pretty all right with that. I think, like I said, like a few things like just getting a bit more map vision is all I really want you to focus on your side of things. But if we can start analyzing replays and understanding what the Protoss is doing a little bit more, I think we're just going to naturally start making smarter, better decisions. And you're also going to start learning from your replays a little bit better. We want to demystify what the Protoss is doing. So even in games like this one, where we go, okay, this guy did a weird build, he went Phoenix into this, we can at least break it down now into its fundamentals and kind of say, okay, cool. Like, all right, he went Phoenix, Stalker Sentry, kind of delayed Colossi, and then like added Storm. It's definitely a weird, different build. But if I was scouting, I could have known he was kind of progressing this way. We've also just talked about like, okay, you see Colossus, bam, we could just drop the Spire. And like, you were still doing real good at this point, right? Worker-wise and stuff. This was still real good.
Killed a mineral line and 71 workers. It's like fine.
Exactly. So if you just had like a plan here for this point, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Whereas I think it's probably easy to lose this game and go, what happened? This was weird. How do I break this down? But yeah, I think this is pretty good, man. So, yeah, lots of stuff to work on there. We've kind of done a bit of an overview of ZvT as well with those worker line goals. So let's hop out of this replay. We got to finish up. We're going over, but that's cool. Let's hop out of that. Try to saturate that third base nice and quickly and start benchmarking that in your ZvT games. As well as next time you face those Hellbat timings, I want you to really like look at what you did in them, focus on like what I said there. Are we scouting it? But also, is our defense, like you don't always scout a Hellbat timing, and you should still, with your opening lots of queens, with a quick reaction, you should still be able to defend it. Sure. I think your ZvT was looking pretty good though. So most of the focus on ZvP. Don't be afraid to build roaches. Really work on your map vision. More checking of what's going on. If your opponent stays 2-base and forces a lot of roaches out of you, don't be afraid, that's fine. We're gonna go up to that 55 drone, Roach, Ravager, Hydra, Zergling timing attack with +1 range. Really nice way to just kind of say, cool, this gives me a real decisive plan. I'll probably mess it up the first bunch of times doing it, but I'll get better at it with practice. And you won't get dragged into their sort of weird games. That should be really good for you. We talked about changing your scouting pattern at the start a little bit, if you want to.
For ZvP, you mean?
Yeah, and we've got that video link as well.
So I think that's a good idea. I like that. I like the extra 2 Zerglings.
Definitely
I should make that part of the build, for sure.
And honestly, I think your current scouting pattern's totally fine, so I think that's like low priority, okay? I think everything else, like the map vision, way more important. So that's something I don't think you need to focus on. Watch the video to be aware of it. And if you do start dying to lots of like charged all-ins and things where you're not realizing what's happening, or you're somehow not getting the scouting info early, definitely you can start doing the different Overlord pattern. But for now, just sneak the 2 Lings in every game. Real easy, simple adjustment. And you should be good.
Cool.
Awesome sauce, man. All right. I want you to be methodical as you have been. Keep writing me down these awesome sets of questions and notes and things before we get into sessions, because I think that really helped us get in, a lot more efficiency out of today. Because I was kind of looking through that. So yeah, I think, keep writing it down, keep saving replays, and let me know how it goes.
Cool. Sounds good.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a good night, man.
Yeah, same. Take care.
Laters, mate.